Good evening. I would like to call the April 22nd, 2019 Bellbrook City Council meeting to order. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mr. Greenwood.
Here.
Mr. McGill.
Here.
Mrs. Middlestetter.
Here.
Mrs. Seeger Lawson. Deputy Mayor Schweller.
Here.
Mayor Baird.
Here. May I have a motion to excuse Nick from this evening's?
So moved.
May I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in roll call?
Motion was made by Mr. McGill to excuse Mr. Edwards from tonight's city council meeting. It was seconded by Mrs. Middlestetter. Mr. McGill.
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter.
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood.
Yes.
Mrs. Seeger Lawson.
Yes.
Mr. Schweller.
Yes.
Mr. Baird.
Yes. Formal approval of the regular meeting minutes of April 8th, 2019. Does any member on council have any corrections or additions to the regular city council meeting minutes of our last meeting?
No, Mayor.
Done, Mayor.
Seeing none, the minutes are approved as written. Mayor's announcements. We have a couple things this evening. First, we're going to start with Anna Shoup. Anna is the Sugar Maple Committee chairperson, and she's just going to give us a brief agenda, I'm guessing, and if
Yeah.
anyone on council has
Yeah,
any
any
questions
questions?
for her. I think we're all excited for the festival to start, and
Yeah.
hopefully we'll have good weather.
Yep. So I wanted to start by letting you know Sergeant Salyers did a 30-minute PowerPoint identifying intoxicated subjects to the members of the committee. 22 attended, and the word was spread throughout. Not everyone could be there, but a large group of us were. And we all kind of knew some of these facts, but it actually, we feel more, we have more power now that we can say no and, stop anyone that we feel is intoxicated. So that was really good, very helpful. We're full this year. Our craft vendors are full. We've got more food booths than last year, and it's going to be good weather and a good time. Does anyone have any questions?
Dog show, 6 o'clock, sign up.
Yep, registration starts at 6:30,
Did
and the park will be done at 4:30.
Okay, is the fire department doing fire dogs?
They
or-
are.
My
yes.
husband will be thrilled.
Oh,
Yes.
good.
So does he get the hazmat?
Yes, no, he gets the 2-alarm.
Okay. Anything else?
Does anyone member of council? Well, thank you very much,
No
and
problem.
hopefully we have great weather and looking
Yep.
forward to it.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
We also have one proclamation this evening. Proclamation Motorcycle Awareness Month, A Bait of Ohio, Inc. Whereas, safety is the highest priority for highways and streets of our villages, cities, state. And whereas, motorcycle riding is a popular form of transportation and recreation for over 200,000 people across the state and millions across the nation. And whereas, in an effort to make motorcycling in Ohio a safer and more enjoyable sport, motorcycling organizations from around the state are now planning a collective venture to promote motorcycle awareness. And whereas all motorcycle organizations, clubs, dealerships, groups, and highway safety officials in our state should join A Bait of Ohio, Inc. and the Motorcycle Ohio program, an activity promoting safe operations, increased riding training, improved licensing efforts, and motorist awareness. And whereas during the month of May, all roadways users should unite in the safe and sharing the roadways throughout the state of Ohio. And now therefore, I, Robert Baird, Mayor of the City of Bellbrook, support and recognize the month of May 2019 as Motorcycle Awareness Month. And I think this is very important. One of gentlemen I graduated high school with, he's in Florida, and his son was killed last year on a motorcycle. A lady this was in Florida, not here, but she had pulled out in front of him. He was 19 years old. So it's very dangerous. I don't know all the statistics about it, but I know they always say look twice. So everyone please be careful and be aware of motorcycles. That is all I have for mayor's announcements, public hearings. We have one ordinance number 2019, and Mr. McGill.
Thank you, Mayor. This ordinance number 2019-9, City of Bellbrook, Ohio, an ordinance amending section 220.01, paren rules of council of the municipal code of the City of Bellbrook, Ohio. Whereas the Bellbrook Municipal Code has established procedures by which city council must follow, and whereas section 220.01, paren B, paren 1, regular meetings currently outlines regular meeting dates and times, and whereas Section 2201.01, I think that may be a correction there, or typo. It should be 201.01B1 currently states that the regular meetings are held at 7:30 p.m., and whereas city council meetings have been regularly occurring at 7 p.m., now therefore the city of Bellbrook hereby ordains, Section 1, that the following amendment to Section 220.01 paren B paren 1 of the Bellbrook Municipal Code be approved with deletions as shown by brackets and strike-through, and additions shown by italics and underline. Section 220.01 paren B paren 1 is hereby amended as follows. Paren B, Rule 2 meetings. Paren 1, regular meetings. Meetings will be held on the second and fourth Monday of each month at strike-through 7:30 p.m., add 7 p.m., or as otherwise agreed upon by the majority of council, and recessed or adjourned at approximately 10:30 p.m. Whenever the date of a regular city council meeting falls on a legal holiday, council may, by majority vote, change the day and hour. Section 2, that this ordinance shall take effect and be enforced in form from the earliest period allowed by law. Basically, it's a cleanup issue,
You got it.
correct?
Any questions on council? We're officially moving our start time to 7. We all have been doing it for a number of years. It's so long we can't really remember when it changed.
Yeah, it's always been 7.
So this is a public hearing. Anyone on council? Anyone in our audience? Seeing no one coming forward, this public hearing is closed. May I have a motion to approve ordinance number 2019-9?
So moved for a approval of ordinance 2019-9.
May I have a second?
Second.
And roll call.
Motion was made by Mr. McGill to adopt ordinance 2019-9, an ordinance amending section 220.01 Rules of Council of the Municipal Code of the City of Bellbrook, Ohio. This was seconded by Mr. Schwaller. Mr. McGill.
Yes.
Mr. Schwaller.
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood.
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter.
Yes.
Mrs. Seeger Lawson.
Yes.
Mayor Barry.
Yes. Moving on, introduction of the ordinances. We have 2 this evening. Ordinance number 2019-10. Mrs. Seeger Lawson.
Ordinance number 2019-10, an ordinance amending section 14.15 Bellbrook Village Plan Review Procedure of the City of Bellbrook zoning code. Whereas the City of Bellbrook zoning staff routinely identifies section of the zoning code that should be clarified, updated, and/or completely changed. And whereas the city staff is recommending amendments to section 14.15 review procedure based on adherence to Ohio open meeting laws. And whereas the city staff is also reorganizing section 14.15 review procedure to align subsections accurately. And whereas all amendments to the zoning code must be approved by ordinance. Now therefore, the City of Bellbrook hereby ordains Section 1, that the amendments to the Bellbrook zoning code attached hereto are approved with deletions shown by brackets and strike-through, and additions shown by italics and underline. Section 2, that this ordinance shall take effect and be enforced from and after the earliest period provided by law. And then the sections that are being reviewed are the review procedure for the zoning inspector, modifying the hearing was otherwise held within 14 days, and now it will be 30 days. And then also modifying sections of the village plan that have to do with signs. Anything else you want to add to that?
Basically, this was another cleanup. So section 14.15 was not organized very well. The whole village review plan is going to need addressed, but this particular section, as it related to signs, past practice was that per this current zoning code ordinance, members of the board were able to approve things via email and mail and fax. And so to bring things in line with open meetings laws, we're removing that and just leaving that approval with the zoning inspector if it meets the regulations that make it permissible. So, and then there were just, the meeting was the other thing. 14-day turnaround isn't typical, so 30-day turnaround is a little more reasonable. Mm-hmm.
And this is an introduction. We'll have a public hearing in our next meeting. Any questions? May I have a motion to introduce ordinance number 2019-10?
So moved.
May I have a second?
I'll second it.
And roll call.
Mrs. Seeger Lawson made a motion to introduce ordinance 2019-10, an ordinance amending section 14.15 Bellbrook Village Plan Review Procedure. This was seconded by Mrs. Middlestetter. Mrs. Seeger Lawson.
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter.
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood.
Yes.
Mr. McGill.
Yes.
Mr. Schwaller.
Yes.
Mr. Baird.
Yes. And moving on, ordinance number 2019-11. Mr. Greenwood.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance number 2019-11. An ordinance adopting the revised City of Bellbrook Personnel Manual. Whereas the City of Bellbrook periodically reviews its personnel policies and procedures, whereas the city has made revisions to the personnel manual that incorporates these policies and procedures, and whereas the city desires to adopt the revised personnel manual. Now therefore, the City of Bellbrook hereby ordains, Section 1, that the revised personnel manual attached hereunto and incorporated herein by reference setting forth personnel policies and procedures for employees of the City of Bellbrook is hereby adopted. Section 2, this ordinance shall take effect and be enforced from and after the earliest period provided by law. And I think this is another cleanup, isn't it?
Yes, so there were 8 sections that I made minor changes to. So the most notable was the vacation. Vacation was given in a lump sum at the end of a year, so employees would have to go a full year with working for the city without any vacation time off. So we're changing that to a accrual per pay period, so that at the end of that year they get the full time, but they are afforded that incrementally along with each bi-weekly pay period. And then the other notable thing was the comp time carryover was 120 hours, and I'm taking that down to 80.
I think that's in line with most
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
businesses today.
Yes.
Yep. This is a introduction, and we will have a public hearing at our next meeting. Does anyone else have any questions on our introduction of ordinance number 2019-11?
Just one, Mayor, I was kind of looking through it briefly, I didn't go through all the detail, but do we have a social media provision included therein?
There might be one in the
Yeah.
policies. So there's the personnel policy manual, and then there are administrative policies
Okay.
that are in addition, and it might be in there, but if it's not, I can definitely add that to the list, because I'm gonna have another revision closer
Okay.
towards the end of the year.
And it's not the most critical thing, but I think it's nice to have it when you need it,
Mm-hmm.
so.
Yep, I think it's a good point. Any other questions? Seeing none, may I have a motion to introduce ordinance number 2019-11?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to introduce ordinance number 2019-11.
May I have a second?
Second.
And roll call.
A motion was made by Mr. Greenwood to introduce ordinance 2019-11, an ordinance adopting the revised City of Bellbrook Personnel Manual. This was seconded by Mr. McGill. Mr. Greenwood.
Yes.
Mr. McGill.
Yes, ma'am.
Mrs. Middlestetter.
Yes.
Mrs. Seeger Lawson.
Yes.
Mr. Schweller.
Yes.
Mayor Baird.
Yes. Moving on, 2 resolutions this evening. Resolution 2019-J. Mr. Schweller.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution 2019-J. The resolution authorizing the city manager to submit an application for a federal grant through the Community Development Block Grant Program, CDBG. Whereas the city of Bellbrook has adopted its comprehensive plan, which outlines the importance of a walkable downtown area and promotes pedestrian access and safety. Whereas the city of Bellbrook held a walkable community workshop in 2017 and indicated specifically that the area of Northwest Street that connects at Franklin Street currently has no sidewalks, which allow safe access to the businesses located in the Bellbrook Plaza. And whereas the city of Bellbrook contracted LJB Inc. to provide the necessary construction estimates of the project, which has a total construction cost of $95,944. And whereas the city of Bellbrook would like to commit a match of 51% toward the final project cost that equates to no more than $48,931. And whereas the city of Bellbrook wishes to submit the Northwest/Franklin Street pedestrian access and safety project to Greene County for the Community Development Block Grant. Now therefore, the city of Bellbrook hereby resolves, Section 1, the city manager is hereby authorized to submit an application to Greene County for the Northwest/Franklin Street pedestrian access and safety project as detailed above. And Section 2, this resolution shall take effect and be enforced immediately upon adoption. And I think we have an update that's hot off the press we just received tonight on this.
So this grant is due tomorrow. So this is why we had to have the packet done on Thursday because there was a holiday on Friday. Well, staff worked on Friday on this because the county was open and a meeting happened with the county to try to determine whether or not this project would be completely eligible. So the Community Development Block Grant normally funds sidewalks, but what we were told is because of our area, that we would not be eligible for sidewalks through this project, so, or through this grant program. So there is an updated schematic that shows it's just marked ADA compliant ramps. So basically, if we were to complete this whole project, along the southern edge is replacing sidewalk and closing off one of the access points to the marathon, also known as Road Dog. And on that corner there, adding in a ramp and ADA compliant dome. And a sidewalk would be constructed along that east side of Northwest Street where there is no sidewalk. And it's basically all one entrance right now into the gas station. So there's no protection for pedestrians that are walking back that way towards the plaza. So this would add curb, it would add sidewalk, and it would give a designated, entryway, which there's a formal term for that, entryway, apron, that's it, apron into the gas station. Then the sidewalk would continue along to the north. There would be another ADA compliant ramp and dome. There would also be some curbing that went alongside into the alley a little bit to clean that up. There would be actual formal crosswalk lines, which do not exist, that get over to the little island where the parking lot to our service department enters right there. So there would be another small sidewalk with 2 more ramps and domes that are ADA compliant as well. So this was the thought and the solution that was brought up when I walked out with our engineer to take a look at this and to have them come up with a good, safe solution to get people back to the plaza. So the full project for everything that you see here would be $107,457. That's built in with a 25% contingency, which equates out to $19,000. So just keep in mind that there is a $19,000 buffer that was built in there that may not be fully used. So the amount that would be CDBG eligible is $35,177. So with that being said, council, I'm giving council 4 options in which to weigh as to how we proceed with this or not. So the first option is we go forward with the full project. And the local match would be $72,280 to the city, which could be, there's a $19,000 buffer in there. This would be 2020 money, so it's not anything that we needed to budget for this year. This could be something that was budgeted for next year. And I've talked to our service director about all of this, and so that's one option. The second option, which is one that I'm most in favor of, is we leave off the Franklin Street part. We still put in the ramp and dome that get people across Northwest Street there to the south. We just don't do the curbing and the additional sidewalk that closes off that access point along Franklin. That was the one concern that the gas station had, was closing off the second access point, which we all know that there are too many access points along Franklin Street, and we definitely need to think about closing some of those down at some point, but I don't think that this is the exact time to do this one. So if we left off just that small sidewalk and curb there, that would save us $15,000 to $20,000. So that would bring our local match to between $52,000 and $57,000. Or we could just apply for the CDBG eligible portion of $35,000. We would just put in the ramps and domes, the 5, so it would do the little small island for the most part up by the service department. It would do the crossing over the alley, that ramp and dome, and then the one down that gets across Northwest Street. That would be 100% eligible for the grant. They are going to have between 100 and $180,000 and $250,000 available for these grants. So it's going to be competitive. So the higher the match, the more likely we would be to be funded. So it's a lot to consider. I will preface this decision with the fact that with the gas tax, the increase being passed, that's going to equate to an extra $170,000 that come to our streets fund, which is where this would be paid out of. Ryan and I talked, and we would like to add an additional $50,000 to paving to bring us up to $200,000 worth of paving annually, which would leave another $120,000 to be able to be allocated towards different things and various improvements that we could make as they're indicated. We do need to keep in mind that we need to set aside about $50,000 a year for the Franklin Street project that we know is happening in 5 years. So with that being said, we still have some extra money to be able to devote while still being able to save some. So if we were able to identify one extra project a year in the $50,000 range, that would still allow for us to have about a $20,000 buffer that we would be able to save towards something else each year. Plus, that money starts coming in July 1st of this year, and we've got nothing earmarked for 2019. So that's approximately $85,000 that would go into that fund this year that isn't earmarked for anything. So both Ryan and I thought that this would be a good first project for 2020 because that is a needed area to add an additional walkway to. So we've got 4 options. We can do any of those things, but I just need to know what direction council would like to go because I have to turn this in tomorrow.
What is a dome?
So you know the bumpy kind of texture, they're usually kind of like a clay color.
Yeah.
That's the dome.
Oh.
So it's the warning for people that are visually impaired that they're about to walk out into a street.
Okay, I thought that was the ramp.
Well, the ramp is just the sloping
Sloping.
part, and then
Okay.
the dome is that addition that goes on top that's textured.
Okay.
But if you don't do a curb, you don't need a ramp, right?
No, but you definitely need a curb because right now that's all flattened and people are driving over all of it.
Yeah.
If we don't put a curb there, it would not prevent people from continuing to drive
Everywhere.
right over the walkway.
They tended to drive over the curbs even when we put the bump outs in, so.
Yeah.
The closing, I totally agree with not closing up that second apron to the gas station, because you need to pull in one way
And pull out the other.
and pull out the other one. How in the world would you ever get turned around if you didn't need to go?
Well, there would still be 2 entrances. There would be the one to Northwest Street and then there would be the one to Franklin. So no matter which way you were going, which way you're facing, you would still have an exit strategy because the one to the side would still be there.
So if you pull in this way, you would have to come out this
Oh,
way.
this way. Okay.
Yeah, the diagram might not be really clear because
So if
it's
you
not
pulled in and
labeled
you went that
that
way,
would be
filled
an
up and
apron.
then pull out your-
Okay, I see. This is an exit,
Yeah.
entrance exit. Okay.
Did I hear you say that that this will this impact the comprehensive plan, or will it not? Will it not?
It's
impact it?
it's in line with the
It's
comprehensive
in line with the
plan.
comprehensive plan in terms of the transportation segment there, and the fact that we identified the entrances and exits that we wanted to control in that area.
Mhm.
Okay.
And this was specifically called out as an area in the walkability study that absolutely
yeah.
needed a sidewalk that does not currently have one. So that's why I focused on this as a possible project for CDBG money. Now, if we don't decide to go for any CDBG money because the match just seems to make council uncomfortable, I could wait and go for transportation alternatives money next year, which is what we just got awarded for the Franklin Street projects, but it would be another 5 years, and I'm not sure if they would award us 2 years in a row either, so that's the concern with that.
What's the negatives with the option to leave off the Franklin Street portion? We could certainly add that at a later time, I would think.
It could,
Would it
and
affect the viewing of our grant since the match would be,
We would have a higher
Reduced.
match.
that would be at 50,000 versus 70,000, but over the entire project would be 52,000 on top of,
But the percentage would be
yeah,
higher, right?
right.
yeah. And I mean, it is gonna be competitive. I mean, at this point, no matter which option we go with, we're definitely putting in more than 50% at this point. So we're definitely showing much more of a commitment than what we're asking for in return from county. So I think that honestly, my opinion is that any of these options we go with, I mean, whether we do the full thing or we go with option 2, which is, you know, still a good option, I think we've got a good chance because what was told to us is that the typical contribution in terms of match is 15 to 20%, and we are totally exceeding that no matter what we do.
Okay.
Mike, you're the,
What kind of money do we have in the rainy day fund for the street department, do you know? I was gonna pull the budget, but I
Off
did
the
not.
top of my head, I don't know. I was just concentrated on, okay, what do I know that we've got coming in that we did
Yeah.
not have earmarked towards anything?
and we'll get this money, this will be a 2020 project.
It would be a
Right.
2020 project, yes.
When do we get the state gas tax?
July 1st.
Did we ask any
So then that would pay for the
For any other
50%,
estimates?
or a little more than 50%, right? Because this is approximately 100 grand.
Yeah.
Did we get any other estimates? I think LGB is very legitimate, but it just seems like a lot of, to me, it seems like a lot of money for a little
Yeah,
piece of sidewalk.
Yeah, I know. I was pretty surprised by the cost too. So this is just an engineer's estimate.
This is
So
not-
the actual construction could be less.
We'd have to put that up.
We get a bid.
Actually, Greene County with the CDBG grant, they will put it out to bid and they will take care of it.
Yeah.
So this is just an engineer's estimate.
Okay.
It's not an actual construction estimate at this point. So it's likely inflated.
I would say leave Franklin out. We can
Yeah.
utilize the 50,000 we'll get in July of next year, which will be nothing out of the budget. Will be full, and you still take a large chunk, and it's still probably 50-50 that will happen.
And that money actually starts July 1st of this year. It's fiscal year 2020,
So
but
it'll
it
come
starts
in
in 19.
July.
So it starts this year that we get that money.
How do we do this resolution? How do we?
Okay, so if we go,
As modified by option 2.
yeah, as modified by option 2, and then Pam and I can,
All right.
I actually like option 2 because
I
it
do
gives us a
too.
chance to us the money in the fund, we can find out things are going. I wanna make sure we have enough money in that street fund, that we have a little bit of rainy day money. And I'm not sure what's gonna happen on Little
So-
Sugar Creek, that's the big
Yeah,
elephant
that's-
out there in the
Total
road.
yeah, that's
match.
the sticker.
Melissa, is, on Franklin Street, that's already, it has an existing
Yeah,
sidewalk.
it does.
Now, is that the
Crappy
property
sidewalk.
owner's,
It's terrible.
It's a crappy sidewalk.
is it property owner's responsibility to,
Actually, we were just having this conversation this afternoon. I don't know what has been done historically. I know that we can, you know,
I-
give property maintenance violations for these types of things, and we could have a homeowner or property owner replace it. There's also another option where the city hires a contractor, goes out and fixes everything and assesses it to property taxes. That's, I mean, you can,
It
you can
ends
go
up
one
that the-
extreme or the other.
Yeah.
But it
To the
ends up
property
that the
owner.
owner pays for it regardless.
Well, you can
Correct.
put it in and essentially assess their taxes if you wanted to on this section, but I believe in the past with relative certainty would need to be verified, that I know like at McIntosh's and all that, they had to pay for everything.
I know.
So
But
they-
the church
so
had to
normally-
pay
So,
over $20,000 to
So,
put
but this is-
sidewalks
so-
in, but the garbage trucks.
I can just
were
tell you in the past that they've made it, like, landowners,
Yeah.
we have.
Yes.
and I
But
picked,
this isn't an existing
is new.
sidewalk on the northwest side. Why one was never requested to
Yeah.
be put in upon construction? I think that that's what makes this different. Is it's a
well, I
brand
can-
new
the
sidewalk.
one side I can see, and that exists all over town.
Yeah,
There's sections where there's just no sidewalk. In fact, West Street,
Yeah.
from that point down the hill, there's
Doesn't.
none on either
That-
side.
That was typical way back when.
They walk down the street.
You just walk down the street.
So I think where we're at with option 2 is it doesn't do Franklin. We have options to do Franklin if we so desire. Pay for it ourselves later or follow our current procedures of marking it with paint and you can talk to Ryan about that.
Yeah.
He's probably been through that process.
Oh, yeah.
So I think, so I guess we need to know where everyone's at. I think right now we're at number 2 now since this is, for the grant money. I guess
Yeah, that definitely
I-
needs addressed.
I don't see
resolution.
any need to put a sidewalk down on Franklin.
I mean,
You're
it's
not gonna
there.
be able to park there anyway.
there.
just
It's already
an
there.
It's already there.
intersection.
Franklin's already got one.
It's already there.
That
only
part-
But I
thing we
mean,
would-
closing it off.
Yeah.
And that's
'Cause
something we can
that's
always
what
look
we've
at.
always been trying to
Mhm.
put in the
Okay, so,
I don't agree.
Not bumper, what do you call it? Curb.
so we're back to adopting resolution 2019-J. Mr. Schweller has already read it, and we need to modify it to where option 2, which is apply the leave off of Franklin Street portion and only complete the Northwest Street portion. And I'm not sure, I think that's all we need probably.
Then we can fill it in, yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
And with that, may I have a motion to adopt resolution 2019-J?
Mayor, I'd like to move for the adoption of resolution number 2019-J with the modification just discussed regarding option 2.
May I have a second?
Second.
And roll call.
A motion was made by Mr. Schweller to adopt resolution 2019-J, CDBG grant submission with the modifications of option 2 to be included in this. It was seconded by Mrs. Seeger Lawson. Mr. Schweller.
Yes.
Seeger Lawson. Mr. Greenwood.
Yes.
Mr. McGill.
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter.
Yes.
Mayor Baird.
Yes, moving on. One more resolution this evening, resolution 2019-K. Mrs. Middlestetter.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Resolution 2019-K, a resolution approving the consolidation of lots 185 and 186 of the Winter Haven Block F subdivision into Lot 185A. Whereas the Ohio Revised Code sets forth the Planning Board as the municipal platting authority, and whereas the requested plat meets the requirements of the city's zoning code and subdivision regulations, and whereas the Bellbrook Planning Board has recommended approval of the consolidation of lots 185 and 186 of the Winter Haven Block F subdivision into Lot 185A of the same subdivision. And whereas the City of Bellbrook subdivision regulations stipulate that changes to a recorded plat shall be approved by action of the Bellbrook City Council. Now therefore, the City of Bellbrook hereby resolves, Section 1, that the consolidation of lots 185 and 186 of the Winter Haven Block F subdivision into Lot 185A is hereby approved for recording purposes. Section 2, that the mayor and clerk of council are authorized to affix their signatures to the revised record plan. Section 3, that this resolution shall take effect and be enforced forthwith.
Okay, so this is a pretty straightforward lot combination. So the same property owner owns both lots, and the home is actually right on the property line of the second lot, in which is wanting to be combined. He's wanting to put an addition on the end of the home that would be abutting and actually exceeding the neighboring property line which he owns. So this is just combining those lots since he already owns them so that he's able to add the addition that he wants to. One thing that I think is interesting about this, though, that Jeff caught, is that in our zoning code, these have to be 16,000 square foot lots, and all of them are 11. So this actually brings it into conformity.
But everything else is still out, right?
Don't ask me
No,
how
I
that
think
happened.
those lots were, that Winter Haven was done
Well,
way,
it
way long
depends which
ago.
sections. My
So-
section was 65.
Well, he's not very far from you.
Yeah, no, he's a stone's throw away.
So I think that this,
Literally.
I think
There are
that
two
the
houses
zoning
on-
code came after
There's,
Yeah.
the
there's
plating.
No, there's one, and he's gonna use the other lot.
Yep.
So a lot of them, like the corner of Tampico and Bellmead, same thing. The house owns 2 lots, but there's only a house on one of them.
Oh, okay.
So, because they're small, so.
Yeah.
So since he wants to do the addition, it would go across the property line, and he owns both of them, so.
And they checked all the easements, and there's nothing in them and all that stuff, so. Any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, then may I have a resolution to adopt
Yes.
resolution
Move that
2019-K?
we adopt resolution 2019. Okay.
And may I have a second?
I'll second.
And roll call.
Motion was made by Mrs. Middlestetter to adopt Resolution 2019-K, lot consolidation of lots 185 and 186 of Winter Haven subdivision. This was seconded by Mrs. Seeger Lawson. Mrs. Middlestetter?
Yes.
Mrs. Seeger Lawson?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. McGill?
Yes.
Mr. Schweller?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes. Moving on, city manager's report.
Okay, so let me get to the right page here. Okay, what do we have going on? Borings for Little Sugar Creek were completed. They had some equipment issues, so part was finished at the end of, or started at the end of last week, and then was finished up today. So we are just going to wait for the results of that, so we can move that whole analysis forward as to what's happening and the recommended fixes for that. Anastasia already noted about the Sugar Maple Festival and the training. I wanted to make sure that council knew about the training that occurred that was given by the police department. Benches and bike racks have started to go down. We're still waiting on some, building owner permissions to make sure that the spaces that we would like to put them are going to be okay. But the majority of them, as long as we get permission, they all should be out by Sugar Maple Festival. I pick up the plaques tomorrow, which is great, so staff will get those put on the benches and bike racks. So anybody that sponsored either of those items would be designated with a plaque with either their family name or business name on it. So I'm just really excited for everybody to see them and use them for Sugar Maple. So it's a pretty good thing. GIS, I've been working with our service director on a possible GIS project where we would take all of our infrastructure that we have latitudes and longitudes for and incorporate them into our own GIS database. So we had a previous service that was unused and some equipment that had never been used. So we're looking at options to get rid of that equipment that is now outdated, so that we can purchase some new equipment, which is cheaper, and with the cost of the money that we should receive from selling the old equipment should cover the cost of the new equipment. So we're just kind of working on that just so that council knows, just one of the projects that I'm working on with our service director. So we would get things like fire hydrants and street signs. I mean, we have that information. They would just need to get, some information collected that we don't have, like some of the valves and mains and things like that. So it's just really good for them to have those exact locations of things, especially when there's snow on the ground and they need to try to find something when there's an issue. So something we're working on. And then our Moody's bond rating was upgraded. We went from an A1 to an AA3. So that increase in our credit rating would allow us an extra $250,000 worth of debt should we need to take out any type of a bond for anything, which I think that the last time that the city took out a bond was maybe for the remodeling of this building, I believe.
Exactly, yes it was.
This, and we also did a bond we redid them for the water department.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
So that was the two.
So they just upgraded us
Yeah.
based on some of our reserves and debt, existing debt and things like that. So they did an interview and it took an hour to go through everything, and they had to take it before a board, and they upgraded us, and that's the result. So
Hey, great job.
that's
Good answer.
pretty
Yep.
much all I have.
Any questions for our city manager? Seeing none, we'll move to committee report service.
No real service report tonight, except for, I actually walked down here tonight, and on the way down, I did notice that the ADA compliance thing on this side of the street, but for Southwest Street, is like peeling up, and I don't know, since we've got
Okay.
Sugar Maple Festival coming
Okay.
this weekend, we might want to make sure that the service department takes a look at that, somebody might
Okay.
trip over it,
Okay.
so. That's all I have.
Safety,
No report.
finance and audit, Mr. Schweller.
Mayor, tonight we want to accept the first quarter financial statements financial summary that's put together by the city manager. And briefly, our revenues seem to track pretty close to where they were last year, close to budget. We're off a little bit, but those are pretty much known items. I was glad to see the EMS receipts were up a little bit. We've kind of watched that. Not that I want people to be sick and calling EMS, but we've always had kind of a downward trend on that. We went through the new billing process, a new billing company, and hopefully now everything's in sync on that. Again, our tap-in revenue was down substantially, although we knew that was gonna happen at some point in time. That was $227,000 last year. This year it's just $12,000. The water bill seemed to be pretty consistent for first quarter 2019 and first quarter 2018. And the expenses seem to be pretty much in track with where we are. We've spent about 26% of our budget through the first quarter of calendar year 2019. So we seem to be on track on that. Nothing really big, and I would think that most of our expenses are very ratable throughout the year because the biggest piece is all personnel related. Looking at our capital projects, I see that the projects that are completed have been completed under budget, and it looks like everything that has not yet been completed, it looks like we feel that we're going to have an estimate for the total project cost of something less than what we had in the budget. So again, we try to engage and use very conservative budgeting estimates, and it seems like they have paid off now, whereby we're going to be spending less than what the budget entailed. With that, no surprises. Things look to be on track for the year, although we're only 3 months into it. But with that, I would recommend that we would accept the first quarter financial update provided by the city manager.
May I have a second, if that's a motion?
So moved.
The motion was made by Mr. Schwaller to accept the March 31st, 2019 quarterly financial update. This was seconded by Mr. McGill. Deputy Mayor Schwaller.
Yes.
Mr. McGill.
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood.
Yes.
Mrs. Middlestetter.
Yes.
Mrs. Seeger Lawson.
Yes.
Mayor Baird.
Yes. Community Affairs.
Nothing additional, just Sugar Maple Festival.
Absolutely. Old business, any? New business, we have one item, motion to waive the sign ordinance for the community garage sale, which is probably one of the bigger events we have in Bellbrook, behind the two festivals. Any questions about that before we make a motion? Then I guess I'll make a motion to waive the sign ordinance for the community garage sale for May 16th through the 18th.
I'll
You
second
made,
it.
you made the motion?
Well, would someone like to make the motion?
Oh,
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, there you go.
A motion was made by Mrs. Middlestetter to waive the sign ordinance for the community garage sale May 16th through 18th, 2019. It was seconded by Mrs. Seeger Lawson. Mrs. Middlestetter?
Yes.
Mrs. Seeger Lawson?
Yes.
Mr. Greenwood?
Yes.
Mr. McGill?
Yes.
Mr. Schwaller?
Yes.
Mr. Baird?
Yes. Any other new business? Seeing none, open discussion. We'll start, Mr. Forrest.
I have two things, Mayor. We had a letter from Township, Thomas Maltz building a building, and I called Kara Tilford, the
Yep.
zoning, and she reached out to us. It's in their zoning to reach out to us when something's in the floodplain, not floodplain, but the water
The Wellfield.
wellfield protection area. And in the past, she always reached out to our zoning person, and we've had personnel changes, so that hasn't happened, or we need to restructure or redesignate somebody that watches over the wellfield protection. I guess that might be part of Ryan and maybe Jeff Green.
That would be Ryan. It should be Ryan. So we got notice because I'm sure our property is within the zone as a reason.
The property is, right.
So, because we would be in the notice area, and assuming, then she also called, did she, or did you call her?
I called her.
Yeah.
And I was just curious, but she said it's in their code, and they wanted to work with us some more to identify issues that we may have with the well field, because it is ours, it's our responsibility. And that area is an industrial area,
Yes.
and, and she said she'd be more than happy to meet with us and maybe discuss and come up with a plan and make sure that that's covered
I
well.
think it'd be Ryan and also
Jeff?
Jeff. So,
Do you know where they want to put the building?
She's,
I
I would have
saw
passed
it.
it on, but my email's messed up.
Yeah, I sent an
It's up at the
updated
corner at the very top.
I was thinking I saw it all
Yeah.
leveled out where
Yeah,
they've got the
that's
big
where it's
signs
at.
and folders.
I believe it was 7,000 square feet.
Yeah, it was downgraded. It was supposed to be 10,000, now it's
So
7,600.
But what's he want to put in it?
Topsoil.
Topsoil.
Dry storage.
Yeah.
They said there's a shortage in the Miami Valley of dry topsoil,
Yep.
so, and
So,
there's no.
That's
mach-
understandable, it rains all the time.
yeah. At least the last 2 years.
But,
But I think, Forrest, I think that's a good idea, so I think Ryan and.
I mean, she was really,
Yeah, she's been good to work with.
yeah, she was really wanting to work with us on this.
Yeah.
She doesn't, she's trying to make sure, because we could go to the meeting and all that kind of stuff. So, because we do have an interest with the well field and because we're on property within the,
Yeah.
I'm sure, the noticed area.
Ask
And they
Ryan
drink
to
the
go to
same water we
meeting.
do.
Can we ask Ryan to go to the meeting?
We, she can,
Okay.
or we could tell her to ask.
Or Jeff can. He says
That's what I'm saying. Jeff would probably be the one.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then he would work with Ryan on the,
Uh-huh.
I would think.
Because, you know, we got the Miami Valley Regional Planning Plan from 2003 that identifies a lot of the potential hazards, that we may want to start with that and maybe even update some of that. And it's just. there's
Yeah,
not-
I mean,
there's-
we can update it. I'm not sure what our political influence is outside of our jurisdiction.
Well, I'm not saying we need to tell people what to do, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
if we know of potential hazards, we can test. Like if somebody has a lot of chemicals, we know what it is. You know, they're regulated by the EPA anyway on that stuff.
Yep.
But if there's something that we know of, I mean, it doesn't hurt to know.
Don't want to find out after the.
And I'm no
mean-
expert on it with the well fields, but I'm sure there are legal notifications they have to do that I'm not aware of, and that's probably something Ryan and Jeff should probably get more involved with.
I'm just bringing this up because I think we ought to be well
Good idea.
aware of that. And my experience at the basin wasn't good with the water. I mean, you see it in the Dayton Daily News, Dayton, I mean, it's all over.
Yep.
So it's really important we do this. So, my second thing was, I went to the business meeting Wednesday, the Bellbrook business meeting at the Bellhop Cafe, and I was really impressed. It starts at 8 and it stops at 9, and they go around and people bring up their ideas, and they have real great discussions, and
It's a good group.
It's a
I've
good-
been there at least once. I know, Melissa, you've been.
I try to go every
what-
week.
She tries to go every week, so it's a good group, and they've been very active.
they have been, and then they come up with some really good ideas, and they network with each other,
Mm-hmm.
and I think Melissa started it, so.
We were at a chamber
Part of
meeting, I
it.
believe.
Yeah, that kicked it off.
Yeah, we were at chamber of commerce meeting.
So, thanks, Melissa.
Titus and then
Titus with Sullivan was
8 o'clock.
picked it up.
instrumental, I think, in
Yep.
that as well.
That's all I got.
All right, moving on down the line.
None.
None, Ms. Milster.
I've been approached by the senior center that meets in the
The old.
school,
Which-
it's in the St. Pierre Education
Mhm.
Building now. They would really like to have a sign someplace, preferably out by the road, that lets people know that there's a senior center in that building, because people don't know. It sits so far back.
You know, we have to look at our sign ordinances, but I 100% agree, because I've been there, obviously, and you've been there. but
Yeah, I
most
mean,
people
I
ain't
know
it's
about it,
there.
but a lot of people don't.
It's a neat little center,
Yeah,
so.
so I'd like to find out more.
They
think-
just need to work with Jeff.
Yeah, they indicated that there was a problem with our ordinances, and I said,
They can work with Jeff.
yeah,
He can help.
okay, that's what I kind of thought. But
Mhm.
I wonder.
Ms. Seeger-Lawson.
Just want to say thank you to Tasha and the Sugar Maple Festival group that has put together a nice looking Sugar Maple Festival again this year. And hopefully everybody will come out and we'll have great weather.
Yep.
Mr. Schweller.
Nothing for tonight, Mayor.
I was looking up the 10-day forecast on my phone. And as of right now, it says Friday 65, 45 sunny, Saturday 63, 54 sunny, and Sunday 68, 52 and sunny.
Perfect.
The
Wow.
reason it's going to be nice is because the football moms are selling umbrellas this year.
Oh, my gosh.
On the
Well-
year that we sell umbrellas, it's not going to rain.
That's true.
That is good. I do not have anything else. Everyone enjoy the Sugar Maple Festival. This is an open discussion time. I don't see anyone jumping up, going once, going twice. Not seeing anything. Does anyone else on council have any other business to come before us at this meeting?
None, Mayor.
Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.